So I just want to start by saying I loved talking to you the other day. I immediately was excited for this panel. You are fierce. You have a lot to say in terms of marketing, but also leadership. So thank you for the privilege of joining the stage with you.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this conversation. It's a good break from the typical stressful day that we all go through. So
yeah, stress at work. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so why don't you tell us what your current role is and what it entails?
Absolutely. So I am currently a marketing director at Henkel, managing the hair portfolio, which is inclusive of hair color and styling. And the two brands that I work on, the first one is called Schwarzkopf Color. And there's a few sub brands under that, but it's consumer retail hair color. That spans the gamut of benefits, but most women use color to cover their gray hair. And then the other brand I lead is called, yes, it's Look Man too. Embracing. The other brand I lead is called Got to Be, and it's a styling and color brand. So it has a variety of stylers that are known for really strong hold. And then on the color side, it's known for more bolder hair colors, fashionable, bolder colors.
Nice.
Beautify you up. So yeah, so those are the businesses I lead. I've been in Henkel about a year. And it's been an exciting ride so far, especially coming in to a new job like during the pandemic and during so much change in our world right now. So it's I feel like it's a new world and paradigm for everybody across all industries.
The new normal, perhaps.
Yeah.
You've been in the beauty industry for a long time. What has your career progression looked like, and why do you stay in beauty?
Absolutely. So it's interesting because it certainly hasn't been linear. I start like when I graduated from college and everything, I actually started as a chemical engineer. Like,
really?
Like the furthest thing from beauty. Yeah, actually. Chemical engineer, I was selling technical cells I was in technical cells selling chemicals into like asphalt and cement and
wow.
Agricultural industry, all sorts of things. You know, this young Black 21-year-old girl selling chemicals in a very predominantly male industry. But I always had like this creative side of me. I grew up really influenced by the performing arts. I used to competitively dance and into music and artwork and culture. So I always had this creative side. And I think with that, because I was competing and representing myself, beauty products and how you look and how you feel was always a part of that. So it's interesting as I worked a little bit and then I went back to get my MBA, that is when I transitioned into brand management and into the beauty industry. And it was a great meld of things for me, because being in sales, it's almost like owning your own business. So I like this idea of being able to like have a product and figure out how to win and how to grow it, almost like a little baby. And then I just, the beauty industry is just, it's fun, but it's also for me, like what really drew me to it is the impact that it has on you as a person and your self-esteem and how you feel about yourself, as well as the way it can transform you and just kind of change I can go through some major transformations from like no makeup to like full on glam, but then it also makes you just beauty products in general. That transformation can really turn how you feel about yourself completely around. So that's for me like the start. And then I would say over my career, I started my beauty career at Procter & Gamble, and I was there for 9 years across a variety of businesses in hair care and color and cosmetics, in a variety of different roles. I moved on to Johnson & Johnson for a year and therapeutic hair care, globally managing the Rogaine business, which was exciting and a different aspect because I hadn't really worked on men's products before. And then I was at L'Oreal for 5 years as well. And with that, I worked more specifically on multicultural hair brands. And now I've been at Henkel for a year. So I've had a diverse amount of experiences, which has been great in terms of like my career trajectory. But like I said, it hasn't been linear. It hasn't, some of the roles I took them a little begrudgingly. Like I didn't necessarily want to do them. The one I can think of in particular was a shopper marketing role that had me moving to Arkansas to be on the Walmart team, to support the Walmart team for P&G. And I didn't necessarily want to take it, but it ended up being like one of the best things that I ever did in terms of like career development and growth and really pushing myself. So it's been varied, but fun. But I would tell people, yeah, it's beauty is a great industry, and we're at a place now where it's evolving, it's becoming more inclusive, which is super exciting for me.
Yeah, and there's so many things I could say. Do you think you're still competitive when you bring yourself to work? Because you work on some challenger brands, right?
Yes, I am. Well, so it's funny you say that. What is, gosh, I'm losing what I'm thinking of. It's like one of those personality type tests, strength
Oh yeah,
finders.
yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of those. But no, absolutely. It's part of my DNA. I'm like competitive by nature, but it's not, it's almost like a self competition. It's like, I'm trying to like outdo myself. And I hate to say perfectionism because I feel like that's a bad word. Like, I don't think anyone can really be perfect, but it's always that striving to like do better and to like, and sometimes it's funny, I'll be in my mind competing on the smallest of things and people don't even know they're in competition, which is fine. It's all about it's a self thing. It's like, you don't know you're competing.
You're like, I just won. Sit down.
Right, I won. Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
On the most trivial of things, but it'll make you feel good.
You mentioned the pandemic. How, I mean, it's the new normal. How has it changed your strategy or your consumer base? My beauty regimen has completely changed since the pandemic. And it's like, sometimes I'm hoping and crossing my fingers no one comes to the door because I haven't put on my face for the day. Have you seen that? Like, what have you seen the pandemic to help shift strategy or give you more insight into your consumers?
Absolutely. Like I would say, Stacy, you're not alone. I think everybody's beauty and grooming habits changed, whether that's, your business on the top and loungewear on the bottom, or like you haven't done anything with your hair for forever. I went through a phase of a lot of scarves and hats and whatever, anything I could do to like camouflage the fact that I hadn't done my hair. So you're right on trend. I think everybody adjusted their ways. And I think what the pandemic brought is really, in my opinion, a need for us as brand owners and marketers out there to really make sure we truly understand where our consumer is at and what their needs are. And I feel like if you weren't a brand who was about truly serving your consumers, the pandemic forced you to be, because their habits changed, their attitudes changed, our practices changed. And those who were able to understand that, but then adjust like their messaging, even adjust what kind of products you delivered or services you delivered in the pandemic. Like those who were already set up to be touchless and not in person and digital, they were already ahead of the curve. And if you weren't there, you had to kind of quickly move there. And then from a communication standpoint, you really needed to make sure, like, is my message relevant during this time? So I might have been talking about my products, so I work on hair products. I might have been talking about, great coverage and beautiful, like shiny, bouncy hair, but people weren't going to the stores to buy the products. So I need to shift my message more to how can I get something that maybe I might have been going to a salon and used to do that, hey, you can get this product and use it at home and it's really easy and here's how you do it. And it's okay if you're not an expert at it, like no one is, try it out. So you have to, change your messaging quite a bit. So I think that, that was another thing that really kind of upped the game from a consumer lens. And then I would say, Stacy, from like a leadership perspective, I think the other thing, at least for me, and I can't speak for everybody, but I think because the pandemic was like, got intertwined with all of the kind of social justice initiatives, Black Lives Matter, this big push on diversity and inclusivity, which, wasn't there like it is now. Like they kind of all got wrapped together. I feel like it's forced a lot of brands and businesses to really look at, were they truly meeting the needs of all their consumers? Are they reaching out to the masses in a real way? Are they being inclusive not only to consumers but even internally in your own businesses? Like, do you have a diverse workforce? Are you thinking about how to talk to all consumer segments, when you're developing your plans and your strategies? So that was, and that was a push. Not every organization was there, and it's okay. But what's great is where it's kind of pushed the landscape. And there's more to do, but I think, business and leadership wise, that was, another piece. And then the last thing I'll say on this point is, I feel like the pandemic, at least for me, it really upped my level of like empathy and compassion and flexibility as it relates to work. Because I do think the past couple of years have brought a lot of change, a lot of loss, dealing with a lot of like mental stress and mental health. Yeah. I mean, there's been so much we've had to deal with. And I think it forces you as an individual, but also like within your work practices, to be flexible, to be compassionate, and to really prioritize. Like, you can't get everything done. You can't do everything perfect. If you got up and you made it through the day and you're alive and you have a little bit of joy at the end, you won. You're winning. And a lot of people didn't get that opportunity. So
I'm listening to you and I'm like, right, you're so right. And then I'm like, oh, I have to ask more questions because I'm just so engaged with what you're saying. So, all right, there's so many directions I want to take this right now. Let's move into technology. Okay. We're in the rise, or we are in the middle of every organization transforming themselves digitally. How has that played a role in the things you're talking about, the changes that have to take place, understanding your consumer better? How are you using those tools to better understand and create empathy as a brand?
Yeah, I think it's really exciting that a lot of things were set up. So when we moved into this kind of pandemic world where a lot of things had to be done virtually, that some of the technology was there. I would say as a person who's working on a smaller brand and what I call a challenger brand in kind of a bigger beauty market, you don't have a lot of funds. So every dollar you spend has to be really intentional. And I think the way at least on the business I run right now and in the past have leveraged data has really been to truly leverage the insights we're getting from our first party data, from purchase data that we can get from second and third party, and really be able to tailor our communications, making sure we're meeting the right consumers that we are trying to talk to. The way the way data has evolved over the past several years, it really enables us to optimize our spend in a way that we know we can send the right message at the right time to the right consumer, follow it up with another message to kind of really lead them through the consumer journey and through the funnel, from them first becoming aware of what our products stand for and what we as a brand are about, educating them and moving them down the funnel to conversion. So I think it's been incredibly helpful. Like in the brands I'm on, one of my brands is solely focused on Gen Z. So we're hitting a much younger demographic. Our media plan is probably 100% digital at this point in social. Wow. So everything is, leveraging data to truly target our consumer. And really go after them. And like I said, when you're a smaller brand, you don't have a lot of money. So you have to make every cent count. And it's critical.
A perfect use case for data, because you're able to find that needle in the haystack. But there's such little first party data within CPG that it is a real challenge. You mentioned this is maybe, I don't know, I hope this is not crossing the line, but here's the question for you. You mentioned Gen Z.
Yeah.
Those are some of the most transformative years that they're living through right now. And you're in beauty. How big of a responsibility do you feel to make sure that you're empowering that generation rather than giving them messages that decrease their self-esteem in the media and advertising, because to me, it's a huge responsibility with huge outcomes based on what someone like you devises as their plan.
Yeah, you're so right, Stacy. It's significantly important. And, I look at it, well, there's a business lens, of course, but even from a personal lens, um, one of the things we know is that the Gen Z kind of cohort is the most diverse cohort that's out there. And, they think and operate differently. And when we think about, I think about me growing up and the messages I got, and, it's very one way. Like you looked at something on TV, or you went to a movie and saw something, and it was very one way. The way brands or services talk to you is like, here's our communication. We're now in a place where it's a two-way street, and with the proliferation of social, you can put a message out, but your consumer is going to have a message back for you, depending on what that is. So it's extremely important that you truly try to understand who you're talking to and look at it from a perspective of, I want to serve your needs. And it's hard because we're all in for-profit businesses where we're trying to, grow profit, grow top line dollars. But we have to remember that we're serving consumers. And I think when you start with that and truly understand the insights and what you're trying to do, then you can approach it from a very authentic way. The other thing I think from a beauty perspective is that it's very important that when you're talking to, this younger cohort, that we have to realize the imagery that we put out there, the messages that we put out there, they are impactful on people. And you don't think about it until you get older and you think back and you're talking to someone and you're like, this thing impacted me from when I was a young person. But I mean, everything, goes back to your formative years. And it's important that, us as brand leaders, that we have a responsibility and onus to make sure that everything we put out is authentic and caring, and again, meeting the needs and sensitive to the audiences we're trying to talk to. So, but even on that point, here's the thing, and this is what I do love about the younger generation, and I'm trying to adopt more of this myself, is that it's okay if you don't get it right. People recognize now we're all human beings. Even brands are run by people. No one's perfect. There's some messages or things that may not land right. And a lot of the time it's not because it was bad intent. It's because of a lack of knowledge or representation to have a lens to say, maybe this wasn't the right way or approach or communication, but it happens. The thing is, when it happens, you just have to address it. I mean, apologize, admit, hey, this wasn't right. Let's go back again. And that's what's, I think, so exciting about communicating to Gen Z in this whole digital world we're in, is it enables you to kind of try new things out, see if they'll work. If they don't, come back again, try it again, get it right.
I feel like Gen Z has a sense of resilience that other generations don't. Is that what you're implying? Because that's cool, if that's true.
It is. It is cool. I mean, there is a sense of resilience. I also think they're coming up in a time where there's so many messages, there's so much access to data. And it's good and bad too, because, right, I feel like, and maybe it's more, things are just more broadly knowledgeable and you know about more things, but I feel like today's issues and stresses and anxieties and, from a mental health perspective, it's much more talked about. People are open and they're talking about the things that impacted you. And I feel like when I was coming up, I'm sure there was just as much stress and mental issues, but you didn't talk about it. You just kind of
left it under the rug.
Exactly. You were like, you know what, push through, good luck. Then, of course it manifests years later probably, but that's a whole nother topic. But yeah.
That's what therapy is for.
Exactly. Which is a wonderful thing. We all, and therapy comes in many forms, but yes, there is a bit of resiliency, but I also think they're very demanding on the information they want to take in, how they want to hear it, and demanding authenticity.
I love it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned when we spoke this week that, you mentioned today that your product serves a unique market, which brings vibrant colors to people's heads, right? And I think that's perfect. That is very empowering as a message to be able to say, like, be whoever you want, own it, pick a color that's unique. I just had to say I love that.
Oh, well, here's the thing. I didn't even cue that for you, Stacy. So that's like one of our brand taglines for whoever you want to be. Forgot to
Really?
be. Yes,
Maybe
it is. You literally just
maybe I'm actually your target. It's not Gen
maybe
Z.
you could be. I mean, I'm certainly not a Gen Z, but I try to keep up. I try to keep up. But no, it's true. And it's empowering, actually. I mean, we're not there yet, obviously, like in this world, but I would love to get, I'm hopeful that we will get to a place where you can be whoever you want to be, and bringing your full self to school, to work, to play. I live in the New York City metro area, so it's a very diverse melting pot, and you see all types of people from different walks of life and cultures. And, looking at someone on the outside is dangerous, because you can't tell who or what that person is, what they do, what they have, what they think about. But I love it, because everybody looks unique and different, and there's so much diversity. And I'm hopeful that we'll get to a place where, if you express yourself, so for example, if you wear like bright color in your hair, that's like the norm, from a student to a CEO. Yep. Like, why not? I think, that's the strive, is like external factors, start to fall away, and we become more accepting as we see more, as we become a more diverse and inclusive society.
There's like two directions I want to go, and I can't decide right now. One is around how you measure success, and the other is around empathy. So I'm going to take a short stop on the first, and then hopefully spend a lot of time on the second. You're using data, you're using technology, your audience is changing. How do you measure success in all that you do? It's a big question.
That is a big question, because I work on a brand, so of course, we measure success by our sales and our profit, at a very high level. And again, we're here to grow and to continue to drive our business. But I think, there's other measures that you want to measure success around too. And because I'm a brand owner, and, my first passion is for the consumer, I always want to be driving consumer engagement, and, overall brand love, for any product that I work on, because while it's a long-term build to kind of build your equity and build, that true love and sentiment for your brand. And there's brands that have been out here that do it very well. It's a long game. It's not a short game, and it's not a quick buck, like day trading or something. Like, you have to invest the time and effort in it. But it's one of those things. It's like it pays off for you in the long run, if you can kind of stay the course, which is hard to do for every business I've been on. Everybody wants to stay the course and do the right thing, but you always have those pressures of, how am I going to make my number? Whether it's a sales number, whether it's a profit number, whether it's a market share number, like that's always there. But as brand owners, that's our challenge, is like, you have to drive the short-term growth, but you have to be thinking about your long-term gain, and you have to be thinking, everything I do it's almost like a personal brand. Everything you do is a reflection of who you are. So you have to be intentional with that. But yeah, there's the monetary value, but then there's the kind of more, other softer metrics that you want to look at to understand the true health of your brand.
Of course. So to pivot a little, you are so real. I like you so much.
There's everything on my fan club.
I'm just saying, you bring authenticity to every conversation that you're having. And I'm wondering if that has always been true as it pertains to the workplace, or over time, have you become more courageous to be authentic?
So that's a great question. It has certainly been over time. And like, I think about my career, and I think, as I think about some of the moves I've made or the attitudes I've had, like, I think when I first started my career, and again, I think a lot of this is from upbringing, when you're first an underrepresented minority. And to be honest, being African-American came before being a woman growing up. Like I grew up in a family where both parents were co-heads of households. There was no distinction between me and my brother and my sister. We all kind of were the same. It wasn't until I got into the working world that I realized, oh, people think think of me differently because I'm a woman. There's actual perception out there. But being Black, I definitely knew that, okay, you're in a society that already has certain perceptions about you and may think less of you because of the color of your skin. So because of that, you grow up being taught lessons. And I think they're really to kind of self-preserve, as well as how do you make your way in this world of, you've got to work twice as hard. You need to be, you really need to be together. You really shouldn't like show any weakness or vulnerability. That's bad. Like people will judge you. And you grow up like that. And then you get into the workplace and you get into work and you're just like, I need to be perfect. I need to be buttoned up. I need to like not say anything or like, mind my place.
But don't you think that's such garbage? Like I feel as a woman when I am in those situations, as a Caucasian woman, I'm thinking to myself, it shouldn't be this way. And sometimes I get resentful rather than channeling that energy to put my best foot forward. How do you thread that needle?
Yeah, I think you hit a pivotal point at some point in your career, and I can't, it's different for everybody, but what I'll say is for me, I think I just decided I'm going to have to, like, in order to really build true relationships, you have to show more than surface level. You have to go deep. And that's in personal relationships and business relationships and in your work life. So I just made that decision, like, I'm gonna be more vulnerable. I'm going to be me. I'm going to, if something doesn't feel right, I'm going to speak up for it. And you know what? If something bad happens because of it, or things, go left, maybe that wasn't meant to be. Like it's really a mindset shift, because the environment around you doesn't really change. And I would say up until, the past few years, I mean, we're starting to see more momentum and more acceptability, but there's still a lot of work to do. But, the environment doesn't change. What changes is your mindset. And for me, like, that probably happened maybe like, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do me. And either you like it or you don't. Like a relationship, either you like me or you don't. But you know what, if you don't, that's okay. It's all good. I'm going to be joyous. But what I will do is go find someplace that will value me and that will like me, love me, whatever. So you just kind of make that choice. So I don't know if it was the same for you, Stacy, in that sense, in terms of, but it's freeing. It's freeing when you.
I became free when I faced my greatest adversity. So, like sometimes when you hit rock bottom, which I have, you're just like, I'm going to climb out of here and I'm going to be the best version of myself. And to your point, anyone who doesn't like it with good reason, bye, and I have seen that really pay dividends in my career, being authentic. And I feel like I love being at Chris because I'm weird. Like I am not your typical person, and I feel embraced there. And for me to be happy at work, I have got to be 100% authentic. Have you seen a return on your investment of self in that way?
Absolutely. And I think what's empowering for me, because I love what you just said. And I also, for those listening, I encourage people, like, sometimes we have to break some of the ways that we were taught, growing up or in our youth, to kind of get past some mental blocks or things that are challenges. But it's so empowering. And what I find is that when you're willing to open up more, when you're willing to kind of take some risks and be willing to risk it and say, like, if I say this or do this or operate in this way, there might be people who aren't for it. When you do that, you'd be surprised. I'm always surprised at how many people come up to me and say, or outwardly show, oh my gosh, I was feeling the same way, or I think the same thing, or I have a similar situation. And it's empowering, but it's also exciting to see, like, you're not the only one. But a lot of people hold themselves back because you're kind of put in a box, or you have, something holding you back, or you think that you won't be accepted if you operate in a certain way. So it's paid dividends, what for me, what I've loved about it is helped me establish deeper relationships which I
Always.
value like nobody's business. I'd rather have like a few really, really great relationships than like surface
Totally.
level with a million people.
It's authenticity and vulnerability, and especially in the workplace, is so contagious. And I
Yeah.
feel like it's our responsibility as leaders to show that side so that our team opens up and we create real connections so we can actually understand what makes them tick and help drive business results. Like, it cannot be separated. The old school command and control management style is never going to work with the generations to come.
Absolutely. And I think that's exciting actually.
I
And I'm
agree.
kind of like a mix. Like I kind of grew up in like that, but like now I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I believe in all that. And I think for everybody out there, you have to find, again, it's hard to change the macro, but you can kind of change your mindset and you can go and try to impact cultures. But if you feel like you're, I like to say running up and down elevator, if it's not working, like keep them, find a place where, you can make that impact and help to shift some of the cultures. But it's exciting because that's what I'm saying. I'm always inspired and excited by like when I see trends and see things change. It's some of the things I'm like, yes, it's about time. I'm older.
But
You go make it happen, but I'll support you.
you said something the other day that has been lingering in my brain, and it made me feel so validated in my experience of life, which was we were talking about fear. And you said, when I look at my calendar, there's typically something during the week that makes me feel nervous. Can you tell everyone what you were talking about? Because I thought that was key and probably everyone could understand where you're coming from.
No, absolutely. It's interesting because I'm glad that was inspiring, and it kind of feels weird because the typical human nature is to feel comfortable, right? It's a good feeling. Like nobody wants to most people do not like conflict and want things to be, smooth sailing. But what I meant by that is, I'm a firm believer that it's the uncomfortable and challenging moments that really help you grow. And for me, as like I said, my career hasn't been linear. I've moved to different assignments, took on different challenges that maybe weren't in line, but maybe kind of veered off track a little bit. Sometimes I even think, oh, you should have moved on sooner instead of staying there. But then there's always something you get out of it. But when I say that, like, I won't say every day. Well, actually I will. Probably every day, definitely every week. There is something that there's always something that makes me nervous, whether it's a meeting, whether it's something I'm working on. And I actually like that. Like if I were to be working on something and nothing kind of made my stomach like a little nervous or like made me be like, ooh, this could go left at any point in time. The wheels could fall off this at any moment. It would kind of become boring to me. And I also know that that's when I'm in a stagnant place and the growth isn't going to come. So it's almost like constantly challenging yourself, but in a good way. I don't think there's we used to call them at bats. I don't think there's a time when I'm at bat or like if it's an important presentation or doing something that I'm not nervous beforehand, because that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. But it's actually a good thing because I think it fuels you and you start to become a little bit more comfortable with the nervousness. And then what it does is over long term, every day we're facing something we're probably afraid of or probably like brings us anxiety, and it helps to give you the skill to like operate in the anxiety and in the fear and to kind of push through it. And it's a thing you just do over time. It's not like you're going to all of a sudden just be like winning at life like on a big obstacle, but it's the small little things you garner more courage, you get a little bit more comfortable operating in the uncomfortable, and then it's better. But yeah, like pretty much every day, every week for sure. I'm like, ooh, I hope this goes good.
And I was like, oh, thank you for saying that, because I look at my calendar, I'm like, please make that go well. Like
yes.
when you're challenging yourself, you can't help but feel that positive pain. And my colleague Gareth said to me the other day, he was like, from pain comes growth. And that's the only catalyst to change and improvement. I see that we're getting some questions.
It's a dichotomy. It's like, oh, who wants to go through pain? It's awful, but.
Right. And then, okay, last question in this realm, and then we'll get to the questions. We still have 5 minutes left. But so how do you balance that with not falling into the trap of imposter syndrome?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think, Stacy, that's the one where it's an overtime thing. Like you have like as no, I'm kind of maybe speaking to people who are a little more junior in their career, not even a junior, like even now, it's like you have to reflect back on when you were in a challenging situation or when you didn't think you could do it, that you were able to do it, and remember that and take that with you as you move to the next challenge and the next challenge. It's honestly having just a level of faith that, hey, I can do this. I did it before. This might be a new challenge, but it's almost like, they say in the finance world, like past history is not indicative of future results, but it kind of is. Like if you've been doing it and doing it and doing it, even if it's a new challenge, you almost just have to pep talk yourself. It's not an easy thing. I mean, the
Totally.
imposter syndrome is absolutely real. I think everybody experiences it. And I think we just put a name to it. It's always been there. It's just no one ever had a fancy, like theoretical name.
Yeah.
But like anything, the more you do something and get a little bit more comfortable in the fact that like, hey, I have a history of, even if that was smaller, I did it. And then if I don't get it right, it's okay. I'll try again.
Sometimes you got to
Because
fake it.
here's the thing, and you're gonna fail. Like everybody is gonna fall.
Yeah.
Like it's a given. Like I'm a snowboarder and I love snowboarding. And I tell anybody who wants to start it, be prepared to fail 100% of the time until it hits. And then when it hits, you'll get it. But you spend a year on your butt because it's hard, it's inherent. You're gonna fall down. But you get back up and you just kind of keep at it and just remember, and I think this is really important because I think it can get very stressful for all of us, like when you don't do well and you put so much stock in that and you dwell on it and it makes you stressed or anxious and depressed, like you have to not associate who you are and your self-worth with something you did. That's just a thing. It's just a project, it's just an assignment, it's just a life situation. It will get better. You can go on and and overcome and do better the next time. But it doesn't define you. It's not who you are. It's what you did.
Well said.
I'll stop there.
I'm that would be a good mic drop moment, but we do have questions.
Oh, great.
We have 2 minutes, so let's fly. The first question
Okay.
is, what have you seen as a best practice in collecting data from Gen Z?
Okay, that's a good one. To be honest, because of that cohort and because there's so much in the digital and social realm, and Stacy, you and I talked about this a little bit. We didn't get into it as much now, but on the brands that I work on, we are building our first party. We buy a lot of external data, but we also do a lot of social listening as well to really and I think too it's inherent of the beauty industry because people are online and talking about their looks or how they got them or what the latest trend is. And I think as a brand in the beauty space, it is really important to kind of keep a pulse on what Gen Z or any cohort for that matter are talking about, what they're into, what do you see trending, what are the themes, so that as you're developing either your products or your communication or your business strategies, they're really tied into what's going on. Because it's real time. It's, literally it's funny. I would joke with family members. I will get a piece of content and immediately look at the comments because I want to see what people are chatting about. Like, it's just natural for me to go like, what are they saying? Ooh, is this good? Is this bad?
Yep.
So in addition to like, very curated, like media sources that are credible, I'm also looking at what people are saying because that's also real. It's that consumer sentiment we talked about.
Yeah. Last one. This is a hard one. I feel like this is a hard one. We're talking about data. We're talking about results being obviously the outcome of sales. But so often in marketing, I'm giving a long-winded preface. So often in marketing, we're not using the point of sale data to dictate our strategy. Are you using real-time point of sale data to help with your activation?
So I'm curious who asked the question when they're saying real time, like immediately, like it's scanned and then I immediately know it, or versus syndicated data. But for the businesses I run, and I will say personally, I am obsessed with the sale because that's a big metric of how I'm evaluating my business. So I'm looking at where it's selling at, how much, what's the velocity of it? How am I doing, per my point of distribution? Where am I growing versus not in terms of the kind of realm of the point of sale data. So it's definitely very important, completely. And like I said earlier, it has to be a blend of the two. You're looking at those financial metrics, and sales and distribution and pricing are super important, especially when you look at your competitive set. But then you also have to marry that with the consumer metrics and understanding your consumer, how they feel about your brand, what they think about the category, all of that together. But point of sale data, critical. And every brand I've worked on has bought a lot of it. We have a lot of data.
Melinda, you are a class act and hopefully a new friend. Thank you so much for spending your morning with me.
We're absolutely a new friend. Thank you so much, Stacy.